Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 306. Okay, so today we're wrapping up our 5-episode series all about anxiety, avoidance, and emotional regulation, the emotional regulation that comes with that. We're wrapping it up with a discussion all about sleep struggles with our anxious, specifically with our anxious and ADHD kids. This is a very practical episode where you're going to get lots and lots of tips. So make sure that you've got those earbuds securely in while you're listening to it. Before we begin, though, I want to give a special thanks to CTC Math. As always, they are such a great supporter of this podcast. Please check them out at ctcmath.com. Shoot them a message. Thank them for all of their support of the homeschooling community, specifically this particular community. I also want to remind you that Curiosity Post, our brand new mail club for kids, where kids get a personalized letter all centered around a theme with a mini journal prompts, a hands-on activity, as well as a bunch of little surprises, is available for you and your kids to subscribe to right now. You can subscribe month to month, quarterly, or for an annual subscription. And every single month, your kids will get an envelope in the mail delivered to them, addressed to them if you put their name in the shipping address section of the website. And they will be able to go to the mailbox and pick that up and participate in the activities. And it's been so much fun. We've got some really great reviews from families who are getting their first envelopes now. If you subscribe by the 15th of the month, you will get the current month's mailing when it goes out around the 20th. If you are after the 15th, you'll get the following month's mailing. But I hope you will subscribe. I know your kids will love it. So head on over to the show notes for this episode to get the link to Curiosity Post and CTC Math. All right, pop those earbuds in and let's get on with today's episode. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 306. I'm so excited that you're here. Today we are wrapping up our series all about ADHD, demand avoidance, and just emotional regulation, things our kids struggle with that tend to often trigger us. And we are leaving with practical solutions to get our lives turned around and back on track as quickly as possible. So let's dive right into this and wrap it all up with a discussion about sleep struggles, especially sleep struggles when it comes to our anxious kids, our kiddos who struggle with ADHD or impulsivity, and our kiddos who struggle with demand avoidance. They need a lower demand ask in order to get things done so their nervous system can feel more regulated and safer. Sometimes bedtime seems like it is a marathon of one more thing. Or your ADHD kid's brain wakes up at 10 p.m. and nothing can satisfy them except talking to you about every single thought they've ever had. Or that's just when they're the most creative and they're dragging out the paints and the crafts and the activities or the building materials, and your house is a disaster, you're exhausted, and you don't know what to do. Nothing is wrong with you. This is something that is typical for our atypical kids. In fact, I would say it is personally one of those things that I have struggled with my entire life, both as an individual, because I tend to work really late at night. I get my most creative bursts later in the evenings, but also as a parent. I have never had a child who just goes to sleep. I have had babies who will stay awake until they absolutely pass out from sheer exhaustion. I have had toddlers and preschoolers who cannot settle down unless they've asked every question that's ever come about. And I still have teens and young adults who cannot shut their brains down. They just want to have deep discussions later and later. And it's great. We want to be able to connect with our kids, but we also sometimes just want a little bit of time to ourselves in the evening. Tonight, you're going to leave this episode with some ideas to start tonight to build a soothing, low demand rhythm and choose realistic goals for your family so that everyone sleeps more without the power struggles. Now, I will say this one caveat to this. Remember, everything we do here, every suggestion I make, every resource I provide comes with that understanding that neurodivergent brains are neurodivergent. And what may work for you may not work for somebody else, or what may work for somebody else may not work for you. And what works today might not work tomorrow, and that's okay. We're building a toolbox to be able to pull from when we need the next set of helpers. And becoming aware of the neurological reasons behind why these things are happening can make it feel like less of a struggle and can also help you remember that you're not alone in this. There are thousands and thousands, if not millions of parents who are struggling with the same thing. And this is something that you can help build habits for so that hopefully your kids can adopt them as they grow and mature. Okay, we are going to start by thinking about and examining what's going on in that brain of theirs, what's going on in the different kind of profiles that I mentioned here. The kids who tend, and I'm really generalizing here, so this may not be true for your kids, but you may be able to find some little nuggets in here. Generalizing, most of the time sleep struggles fall into areas where our kids are either have ADHD or have brains that just won't shut off like an ADHD brain, or have strong impulses and need those dopamine hits that we've talked about before on this podcast throughout their day, and their brain just won't shut down because they're looking for that next piece of novelty and interesting thing to happen. This also happens regularly with kids who are anxious because there's lots to be anxious about at night. We're going to talk specifically about that in a second. And then it can happen with kids who need a more low demand approach to living. They need smaller bite-sized chunks. They need to know why things are happening, and they just need a little bit more scaffolding to ease them into routines. When we're talking about those ADHD brains or ADHD-like brains, they often get a second wind at night, which then gets coupled with time blindness, meaning they just really don't have a sense of how much time is actually passing. And so they could start talking to you, and an hour later you're still talking, and it just feels like a minute to them because their brains are revving up. Their brains are also dopamine seeking. So the time blindness plus the dopamine seeking, meaning they want that input, they want that novelty, they want those interesting conversations, plus the late day or late night overstimulation makes just go to sleep impossible for kids like this. And so just go to sleep or just start a bedtime routine or just shut your brain down is going to have the opposite effect on them. So we need strategies that specifically relate to that revved up brain. Anxious brains can overestimate the threat that comes with bedtime. Lights out equals shadows and ominous feelings and corners that they can't see into, and silence with random and weird creaks and moans and groans in the house, or television filtering up from a couple floors below if parents are still up, which gives them lots and lots of room for worry, scenario building, catastrophizing. And so their brains can spiral into anxiety and panic attacks at night when they're just surrounded by all of this room for thinking. Kids who have specific types of sensory profiles can also struggle, especially if they have sensory profiles that react to tactile stimulation, auditory stimulation, or temperature fluctuations. Bed sheets can feel scratchy or itchy or too shiny or smooth. They can feel rough. It can feel too light, unsafe, too hot, too cold. Tags in their pajamas can keep them up. The house sounds can feel huge to them. There's all sorts of sensory things that are happening at night that seem bigger than they do during the day. And then our kiddos who have autonomy defense or demand avoidance, when we are telling them to go to sleep or it's bedtime, that can read as demand or a threat, which then triggers their pushback, and we can't get them out of that loop. So we want to make sure that we're reframing what we're thinking and how we're communicating it to our kids. We're not forcing sleep because, frankly, you can't force people to go to sleep. It's just not possible. And so we want to make sure that we're not trying to do that. We can't become authoritative and just demand that they go to sleep immediately, because sleep is not something you can demand of another. We are trying to build conditions where sleep is more likely for our children. We want to soothe their body. We want to shrink the ask that we're making, and we want to stack the wins so they can build upon those. Again, sleep is a challenge for neurodivergent families, whether your neurodivergent kids are babies or they're young adults, or you are an older person like me who is struggling with sleep. I lie in bed and my brain cycles. It cycles through anxiety, it cycles through worry, it cycles through conversations that I've had throughout the day and where I could have done something or said something differently, and what I expected of myself versus what I was able to accomplish, all sorts of things. This is something that we need to improve conditions for and make the situation conducive to sleep, and not focus on, I just have to get them to sleep, or personally, I just have to go to sleep myself. That's not going to work. So let's start setting realistic goals. Let's start with one thing. Let's make a goal to, by the end of the week or by the end of the time period you give yourself, after you've implemented the strategies that you've learned in this podcast and then gone to the show notes to reread and refocus on, you want to move the bedtime or the lights out portion of the bedtime routine earlier by like 10 to 15 minutes. Not an hour, not 2 hours, 10 to 15 minutes. We're talking baby steps here, and it's going to be something that we're going to need to work on throughout time. And it might be a situation where we're taking a couple steps forward, a couple steps back, and we're going back and forth for a while. But we can do it. We can absolutely do this. We might want to set a goal to reduce the bedtime negotiations by half. Can I just have 5 more minutes? Can I just get back to my base in Minecraft? Can I just have another glass of water? Oh, I forgot to have a bedtime snack. Can I have a bedtime snack? Can you read to me one more chapter? Maybe if that's the struggle that you're facing, there's lots and lots of negotiations and bargaining that we're just going to cut that in half by the end of whatever our predetermined time is. Maybe you're being called into the bedroom, or something's happening that you're needing to check regularly, and you're going back and forth to the bedroom 4, 5, 6, 10 times. Let's see about cutting the return trips, maybe from 8 to 4 or 4 to 2 by the end of this period that we determine that we want to use. Or maybe morning mood is a struggle because we've stayed up too late, we've spent too much time overthinking, we tossed and turned because we were caught in that anxiety spiral before we finally dropped off. And we're waking up, our kids are waking up sluggish, reluctant, struggling to get going. You've got to ask them 10, 12 times to get out of bed. 2 hours have gone by and they're still falling back to sleep. Maybe your goal is to improve that morning mood. Fewer tears, less reluctance, a faster first task in the morning, fewer asks to get up, whatever it is. Set your goal, set one goal, make it realistic, and make that what you're striving for in this first week of trying to improve your bedtime and your morning routine, your wake up routines. I do want to make a quick medical disclaimer here and give you a quick kind of encouragement. If your kids are struggling physically, emotionally, mentally in a way that is impeding their sleep and a way that simple strategies aren't going to just cut it, consider seeing your pediatrician and just getting your kiddos evaluated for other medical needs, especially if you're noticing snoring, if they're breathing differently at night or gasping, if they're having frequent night terrors or very vivid dreams, if there's persistent insomnia. Chat with your pediatrician. If your child uses medication or supplements that affect sleep, whether that is affecting it, making it more difficult to fall asleep, maybe your child is on a stimulant medication and they struggle to shut down and fall asleep at night. Maybe they're on a supplement like melatonin that allows them to fall asleep, but you're noticing they're not staying asleep. Just take time to step back, see if there's something physiological going on, make an appointment with your pediatrician, be honest about the supplements that they're taking, talk through the medications that they're on, and see if there's some tweaking that needs to happen with there. Because if it is a physiological problem or if it is a medication or supplement related problem, none of the strategies that we're going to try are going to work anyway. So we want to make sure that we're taking our entire child into consideration when we're trying to work on these bedtime routines. All right, so let's talk about creating a 4-step routine for our evenings. We want to keep it in this order. It would be great if you could post it visually. I suggest getting just 3x5 note cards and writing it down. Even for yourself, if you just want to keep it to yourself, that's fine. But talk it through with your kids as you're doing it. Start with 10 minutes of movement. Your kids, especially those ADHD kids, have a lot of pent-up energy. And if your kids are gifted or twice exceptional and they fall into the exceptionally, highly, or profoundly gifted range, they may have ADHD-like tendencies, but not true ADHD. We call this psychomotor overexcitabilities. I have a whole entire podcast episode on each of the different overexcitabilities, and psychomotor is one. Psychomotor simply means psycho, the brain, motor, movement, and it's a movement of the brain. Kids who have high cognitive abilities, high IQs, whether tested or not, have a psychomotor overexcitability that can mimic ADHD symptoms and make it very difficult for them to shut their brain down because they're constantly moving. Their brains are constantly moving at a pace that far outstrips neurotypical people, peers, kids, adults. And so their brains are already solving problems that they are thinking about for tomorrow. And so we need to help ratchet them back. And one of the things we can do is get physical movement into their nighttime so they can get some of that out because there is a correlation. We want to use this movement to decrease their energy, both the psychomotor energy as well as their physical energy. So we can use wall pushes, chair pushbacks, push-ups, jumping jacks, animal crawls, relay races, the floor is lava games, hallway relay races or sprints, playing with a dog, running outside if the weather is conducive to that. You could play 2 songs and then dance it out and say something like, okay, we're going to do our 2-song body tune-up and then it's time for our lights out. But work in about 10 to 15 minutes of movement so your kids can get rid of some of that energy. This whole thing, the 4 kind of step routine that I'm talking about now, we're going to aim for it to take about 45 to 60 minutes with the goal of eventually ratcheting it back a little bit. But if we just know that it's going to take us about an hour to get through, we can set our expectations for that. Make it fun, make it enjoyable, make it novel for those ADHD brains, make it safe for our demand avoidance and our anxious kids, and make it sensory friendly for our sensory kids. And then we can start easing them into being able to use these routines on their own. Okay, so that first part of the 4-beat or 4-step routine we've got going is the movement beat. Then we're going to move to the dimmer beat. We are going to start cueing our circadian wind down. by using lamps instead of overhead lights, dimming them if you can, or cutting the number of lamps you're using if you can do that. We actually still keep up some of our holiday lights. We keep up white string lights on our mantle. This year we're keeping up in our kitchen. I'm thinking about putting them back up. I had them up before the strands burnt out after a couple of years. In our dining room, which is like our school and craft room, you can turn all the other lights off and just have those Christmas lights or those string lights or twinkle lights on. But dim the lights, cue that circadian wind down, turn off the screens if possible. If it's not possible because your child needs that to wind down, turn it on night mode so you're lowering the blue light, which excites the brain and keeps the circadian rhythm from happening. And then lower the house volume if you can. So if you've got somebody who's listening to music or podcasts or something loudly, ask them to use earplugs or earbuds or headphones. If you've got older kids who are still like talking on the phone to their friends or doing their schoolwork or just watching TV, ask them to tune it down. Try to lower the volume in your house as much as you can. While we're in this dimmer mode and lowering the stimulation while cueing our circadian rhythm to start up, we also want to try to make some environmental tweaks. Maybe if your kids like it, you could turn on a fan or some white noise. You can crack their door so they can see some light from outside. Maybe your kiddo prefers weighted things like a weighted stuffed animal, a weighted body pillow, a weighted lap pad, a weighted blanket, whatever your child needs to help them fall asleep and feel safe. Just make sure it's child-led. Use things for their bedding and their pajamas that are in their preferred fabric. And try to keep this whole dimmer beat to about 10 to 15 minutes as well. So now we're about a half an hour in to our 4-step or 4-beat nighttime routine. We've gotten some movement in to discharge some of that energy. We've set the dimmer switch, right, to cue the circadian cycle and rhythm. Now we're going to go to a connection beat. We're going to co-regulate before we have to separate for the night. Oftentimes, anxious kids are really worried about what they can't see, and that includes you. I remember a friend of mine once saying that her son was so anxious that he was going to wake up and his parents would be gone. His whole family would be gone, would have left while he slept, that she made him the keeper of the keys. And there was a dish by his bedside table that had the car keys in it. And parents would deposit their car keys in his little dish at night. So if he woke up in the middle of the night, he could see the car keys were still in there and know that his parents were still home. Whatever it takes, we want to make time to connect because our kids can worry when they're anxious about separation. And we want to make sure that we're co-regulating so they feel safe. So this is the time for a read aloud. You could be reading aloud picture books. You could listen to an audiobook while snuggled up together. You could read a chapter of a chapter book. You could do team reading where you read a chapter and they read a chapter, or you read a page and they read a page. Whatever, reading aloud is a great strategy for connection time. You could also do some doodling together. Maybe your child is someone who calms down through art. You've got a dim light on in the room. You've got your white noise going. The volume's turned down in the house. Pull out a sketchbook and each of you do some Zentangling or some doodles. I'll link to some different resources for some of these suggestions, both blog posts that I've written, resources that I have, and some books that can help you with some of these ideas. I love Zentangling, and some of my kids do too. I've got several books of different Zentangle patterns that we like to look through. I actually run a doodle club in the Learners Lab once a month where we just get together on Zoom, and the kids and I, and actually some of their parents too, we doodle for a half an hour to 45 minutes. And sometimes it's based on a theme, sometimes it's just random doodles that I thought of. But recently we've been really enjoying Zentangles and Zentangling patterns. So you could try that. You could do a rose bud thorn exercise. We have done this a few times in the Learners Lab where when we've been talking about regulation and reflection. When you do a rosebud thorn exercise, you're finding a rose from the day, something positive that happened in the day. Then you're finding a bud, something that is exciting and new and emerging, and something that maybe you want to nurture. And then you're finding a thorn, something you didn't love that you want to work on and improve for the future. So you can talk about your rosebud and your thorn for the day.
Okay, so let's talk about math. Specifically, let's talk about finding a program that actually works for your unique homeschoolers. In our house, we've been using CTC Math for years, and even though I am so appreciative that they sponsor this podcast, I am a paying customer. I'm still a paying customer even with their sponsorship because it's just that good, and I love supporting great companies with great programs. With 2 kids still at home, both with very different learning needs, CTC Math has been the flexible and dependable solution that I keep coming back to. One of my kiddos needs more time to process math concepts, and I love that she can move through the lessons at her own pace without feeling rushed or behind. My other kiddo, he flies. He jumps straight to the end of unit tests to see what he already knows, and then we only focus on the lessons that fill the gaps. That kind of customization is gold when you're homeschooling gifted or twice exceptional kids. CTC Math gives you the access to every grade level, from kindergarten through 12th grade with your subscription, so that your child can accelerate, review, or jump around based on their own needs, not based on some rigid curriculum structure. And because it's video-based with clear instruction and auto-graded lessons and quizzes, it frees me up to support my kids without being chained to a textbook, teacher's manual, or whiteboard. So whether your child needs more time or is racing ahead, you can tailor it all with CTC Math. Check it out at ctcmath.com. You will see why so many homeschool families trust it. And if you've got quirky math learners like I do, I think you're going to love it. If you have any questions about CTC, like I said, we've been using it for years in our homeschool, and I encourage you to reach out and ask me any questions that you have. If you do pop over there, let them know that I sent you, and let them know that you appreciate their ongoing support of homeschoolers everywhere, especially those of you here at Raising Lifelong Learners. All right, let's get back to today's episode.
Okay, so now we're about 45 minutes in because we want our connection time to take about 10 or 15 minutes. This one you can push a little bit longer if your kiddo is one that really needs that connection time before separating, but you want to limit it, right? You want this to flow into those 4 beats. So we've got our first beat where we're getting some movement in to discharge energy. We've got our second beat where we're setting that dimmer switch to cue our circadian rhythm and our circadian cycle. And then we've got our third beat, that connection beat, where we're co-regulating before we have to separate with our kids for the night. All right, this last beat in the 4-beat routine, or the last step in the 4-step routine, is our final wind down. Again, 10 to 15 minutes. We want to make sure that we're doing the same sequence here nightly. This is where we need to do the final steps to cue our minds and our kids' minds that it's time for sleep. So this is the time that we want our kids to brush their teeth, wash their face, put on their pajamas, go to the bathroom, do a quick pajama check. Do I have any tags that are bothering me? Do I have any seams that are bothering me? How does this feel tonight? And then we're going to go through just a 3-step routine and check in with them and let them check in with themselves. And then we'll leave. Okay, so let me just recap that for a second. We want to wind down with the same sequence. Brush teeth, wash face, go to the bathroom, put our PJs on and check them out to make sure it's all cozy and comfortable. And then we're going to do these 3 check-ins. We're going to check in, body. Encourage your kids to take 5 slow breaths with their hands on their belly, squeeze their pillow so they're getting that tactile input and they're in control of their body and their senses. And then their brain, they can talk you through something as they're lying in bed. Take a picture walk through a favorite place. Close your eyes, draw a picture in your mind. Tell me what as you walk through grandma's garden, or what does it look like when you're walking from the car into the co-op building, or whatever. Picture it and describe it. Or list 3 wins from today. What are 3 things that, you did really well? Or ask them to use their brain to come up with a gratitude statement. I am grateful that I was able to spend some time with my good friend today. I am so grateful that the sun came out and we got to go outside today, whatever it is. So check in with their body, check in with their brain, and check in with their bed. How does the bed feel? Turn the pillow around, get that cool side up so you can put your head down on it, tuck your feet in, pull your feet out, tuck the bed sheets in, untuck them, whatever needs done. Have them choose if they need it, an animal guard, a stuffed animal to guard them, or a weighted animal to give them pressure, or whatever they need. And then you're going to leave. So with this wind down, I'm going to recap it again and give you something to say to your kiddos, okay? You're going to get them through the sequence, brush your teeth, wash your face, use the bathroom, check in with your pajamas. How do they feel? Is everything comfortable? How does your body feel? Let's take 5 slow breaths. Put your hand on your belly while you're breathing. Squeeze your pillows. Check in with your brain. Can you take me on a walk through your favorite museum and tell me or list 3 wins or say something you're grateful for? Check in with your bed. How does it feel? Do you have the right blankets? Is your pillow fluffed up enough? Do you have your stuffed animal? Great. I'm going to go now, but I will be back to peek in 10 minutes. So don't worry, I'll be back in 10 minutes. So if you remember something you need, you can tell me then. You don't need to come out. Let's take advantage of this wind down and how good we feel and stay put. So talk your kids through, then come back in 10 minutes. And if you can sense that your kiddo's not ready to settle down, then repeat that. Great, you're doing amazing. I'm going to go and I'll be back in 10 more minutes to check in. And do this a few times so you're taking away the incentive to leave their room, okay? So this is going to take time. You're building new routines, and new routines are habits that take practice. So let's recap those, right? 10 to 15 minutes, you're taking a movement break to discharge that energy. 10 to 15 minutes, you're hitting the dimmer switch and you're adjusting the environment to make it more conducive for sleep. Remember, we can't force sleep. We can create an environment that is conducive for it. Then you're taking 10 to 15 minutes to spend connecting. So you're regulating and helping your child self-regulate before you need to separate for the night. And finally, you're helping them wind down. You're using the same routines, the same sequence, the same words nightly to help their brains be triggered that it's time to sleep. So hopefully you'll have fewer and fewer of those 10-minute check-ins as you progress. Okay? All right, let's think about if our kiddos struggle or put up roadblocks, what kinds of things might we see and what can we do in place of that as we're implementing this kind of 4-beat system. You might have a kiddo that's pushing back, right? And wanting to opt out. I just don't want to go to bed now. I'm not ready. You can say, okay, I'm starting the dimmer section of our plan now. I'm going to start dimming the lights, turning off lamps or turning off overheads. You can jump in and help when you're ready, but I'm going to start doing it now. Okay? You could say, pick one. Would you like me to read you a story? Would you like to listen to an audiobook, or would you like to listen to music on a calming playlist? Let them choose. You could also say, passing on your choice is okay. I'm going to read. You can listen if you want, or you can tune me out. Finally, you could, if you really need to, if the avoidance is very strong that night, You can do a postcard version. We talked about that last week. A postcard version, a smaller version of the nighttime sequence. Maybe it's a quick brush of their teeth and splashing cold water on their face and patting it dry, going to the bathroom and putting on their favorite pajamas that they've worn a million times and getting tucked right into bed. Pull the demand down by lowering the expectation. Maybe your kiddos are pushing the boundaries and throwing up delay tactics. This is really an important time for you to stay calm. So you can say, I'll do one more paragraph in this book, and then I'm going to need to close it and put it away, and we can keep reading it in the morning. Or you could say, I'll do one more check in 10 minutes, and then we need to wrap it up. I can't take any more facts tonight. I can take one more fact, and then you can jot the rest down in your journal and bring it up tomorrow morning to me, or whatever it is. You could say, if they need water, remember, checking the water in your water bottle is part of your bathroom time. You're supposed to refill your water bottle then. We will add it to your visual reminder tomorrow if you're using a visual reminder. I'll go fill you up some right now, but you need to stay in bed, and we'll add it to your checklist tomorrow. Maybe your kiddo's brain is starting to feel anxious. You can tell them your brain is doing the loud job. Let's give it a quieter job that's purposeful, that will help us calm down. Picture your Minecraft world. From the door to your farm, and describe to me what. Close your eyes and walk me through it, describing what I would see if I was in your Minecraft world. So give them a switch for whatever their brain is cycling on. Their anxiety is getting very loud in their brain. Acknowledge that. Say, let's give it a softer exercise and something that we want to purposely guide it towards. One of my kids is a great storyteller. And we used to do, for an anxiety, when anxiety was triggered, we would walk through the magic door. She had an imaginary door, like on her wall somewhere. You couldn't see it, obviously. It was imaginary. And I would say, go walk through the door and tell me what. And she would tell me a story of fairies and magical creatures that she was seeing on the other side of this door. So whatever works for them. You could also say to your anxious kiddo, tell me 3 safe things in this room. I'll go first. I'll tell you 3 safe things. Your weighted blanket, your favorite teddy bear, and that really cool lava lamp over there that gives you a nice low glow. What are 3 safe things? And talk them through it. If sensory is becoming a struggle, we can start implementing some things into our days, that in our night routine, that will help with their sensory struggles. Maybe they have tactile struggles or avoidance. You can try to pick up. And remember, you can't do all of these things at once. Ease them in and maybe make notes as to what you think might work for your kid. But tactile struggles, you might want to find tagless pajamas, softer fabrics, compression. If your child needs that weight, you might find compression, or like long underwear, or Cuddle Duds is a brand that I know I've used before. They're really soft and kind of silky, but they're like a wicking underlayer. Maybe they wear those for pajamas instead, because it'll give a little bit of compression. Maybe there's alternate sheets. You can find some jersey sheets, so it's more like a t-shirt, or bamboo sheets, or satin if they like that cool kind of feeling. Find them seam-free socks if the seams are bothering them. If it's auditory, give them a consistent sound, like a fan or white noise, or pre-record your voice reading books to them and let them listen to it as they're falling asleep, or just play an audiobook so it's quiet in the background. If there's visual challenges with their sensory needs, use a nightlight behind furniture so it's dimmer and less harsh. Avoid hallway glare, so turn off lights in the hallway, especially if you're cracking the door. Give them a simple wall view. Reduce the visual clutter in their rooms on their walls so there's less drawing shadows and less to startle them at night. Maybe there's an oral motor challenge. Maybe give them a straw so they can sip water if they need to. A crunchy snack an hour or so before bedtime. Not right at lights out, because we don't want them working on digesting their food right away, or thinking about it, or disrupting the bedtime routine for that. Maybe it's a smell or a temperature issue. Cool the room down, warm the room up, give them their favorite mild scent or diffuser if they can tolerate that. Put it on the stuffed animal if they like that. if that's more soothing. One of my kids often uses an eye mask, and sometimes she uses one that's scented with lavender. But try to adjust whatever it is that's bothering them ahead of time, or take notes on what's bothering them, be a student of them, and take those notes so you know what to swap out when they're awake before the bedtime struggles happen. Finally, let's talk about some morning anchors that can help us at night, because it eliminates the what ifs or what's tomorrow going to be like, the uncertainty about tomorrow. We can set habits like they know they're going to get light first thing in the morning. So maybe you go in and you open the blinds within 10 minutes of their wake up time, or right when they get up while you're making breakfast, you encourage them to step outside for 2 to 5 to 10 minutes if possible. First thing morning sun is great for our circadian rhythm. So if you can get sun on their face and fresh air and light first thing in the morning, this will continue to help you at night, because then when you set the dimmer switch and you trigger the cues for the circadian rhythm, you're already setting that up in the morning. We want them to get sun as early as possible, if there is sun. If you live in an area that, like Ohio, is gray a lot of the time in the winter, you might want to look into a blue light or a sunlight lamp. Now, there's definitely within the medical community debate, I'll say, around whether sunlight lamps or blue lights designed to mimic the sun actually work. I will say, as somebody who lives in Ohio and has used a sunlight lamp before, I'll link to the one that I've used in the show notes. I see when I consistently use it in the morning for about 15 minutes, I feel better. I know also that I am vitamin D deficient. So I take vitamin D every single day of the year, and in the wintertime, I take more of it. So this is definitely something, if this is a struggle, you might want to talk with your pediatrician about what's appropriate and what's healthy for your kids. You also want to move early before you start your work, before you expect your kids to sit down. And we've talked about this in past episodes. Get a short walk in, use a trampoline, do wall pushbacks, have some kind of movement routine. So not only are you using movement to set up your 4-beat bedtime routine, but you're starting your day with movement too, to give that energy somewhere to go. And then something else you can do to help your bedtime routine during the day is reduce caffeine and sugar intake after mid-afternoon. So make sure any sugary treats, or if your kids use caffeine or if they're on a stimulant medication, try to get that as early in the day as possible so that they're set up better for success at night. Finally, if your kids still nap, or if you nap, try to limit it to 20 or 30 minutes and before 3 p.m. It's really going to mess with your bedtime routine and make it a struggle, because the conditions aren't right for you to fall asleep if you're taking long naps during the day. So anchor your bedtime routine in your habits during the day so that you can set yourself and your child up for success. Okay, let's talk really briefly as we wrap this episode up about what you can do over the next, say, 2 weeks to reset your child's, and yours, frankly, if you need it, sleep routine. First, you're going to prep. Just prep one time. Prep it, set it, forget it. Build that 4-beat routine that's going to work for you. If you are a visual person, write it down. Get 4 note cards, write down movement, dimmer, connection, and wind down on each of those cards, and then write down what you're going to do. The movement you're going to do, the things you're going to do in your house to set that environment to dim, the things you're going to do with your kiddos to connect, and then what the wind down routine is. Do that once, and then prep it once and have it. You could even create a menu on those cards so you have different choices to make. Then decide on your one goal, or at max 2 metrics for measuring that goal for the 2-week reset. Maybe it is fewer coming out of your rooms. Maybe it is less parent check-ins. Maybe it is fewer demands, one more chapter, one more glass of water, whatever. I want to bring it down from 10 to 5. I want to start 10 minutes earlier. Whatever it is, set your goal, be realistic about it. Week 1, I want you to focus on stabilization. So days 1 through 7, I want you to keep a bedtime time window. So I don't want you to decide, I want everybody in bed by 9:30. Having a set time is going to set yourself up for failure, because now if everybody's in bed by 9:45, you failed. But if everybody had been going to bed by 10:15, 9:45 is a huge success. So we want to make sure we're setting things realistically and we're not setting hard and fast rules. So set a window that you want your bedtime time to be. You want your kids to be done with their bedtime routine by somewhere between 9:15 and 9:45 if you've been going to sleep really late, or 8:45 to 9:15. Whatever it is, give yourself a window. Run the 4-beat, 4-step routine exactly. End each of those segments of it, the 10 to 15 segments, the 4 10 to 15 minute segments, end each of them while it still feels good and easy. Before agitation starts, before pushback begins, as you see your child needing to move on to the next step. As you see your child starting to get reluctant, say, okay, I'm going to go. I will be back in 10 minutes to check on you. Make sure you're ending when it's still positive. If it stalls, start again. If it's shrink the ask, do a postcard version of the wind down. Do a 1-page story. Do 2 chapters and say, we'll cut back to 1 chapter tomorrow. Whatever it is, make sure you adjust the ask so it's successful. And then during that first week, I want you to track how quickly your kids are falling asleep after your routine ends, how many times you're having to return to them, what the mood is like in the morning, and do some reflection in your journal, on a sticky note, just in your brain, on your computer, in your notes app, on your phone, whatever, of how this is going. Revisit, reflect. Second week, days 8 to 14, we want to make gentle progress. So we spent the first 7 days stabilizing the routine and making it a routine. Now we're going to move the start of our 4-beat rhythm to about 10 to 15 minutes earlier. And we want to aim towards a tighter time window for it to be done. Maybe you want to add something in. Maybe you recognize that we need to add some white noise in, or we need to do some breathing, or we need to make sure we're getting outside light first thing in the morning. And do that based on your reflections from the first week. And then introduce a check and leave pattern. Peek in at 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Keep that peek in under 30 seconds. Peek and then leave. And let them know that. I'm not going to come in for the full time after every 10 minutes. I'm not going to come all the way in to check on you, ask you how you're doing. I'm going to do a peek because I know you're winding down and I want to give your body a chance to fall asleep. So I'm going to peek in on you at 5 minutes and I'm going to leave, but I'll be back 5 minutes later at the 10-minute mark and I'll peek in on you again. So they know you're coming back, but you're not engaging. Okay? Let's think about some of the troubleshooting that we might need to do. If your kiddo is one of those kids that gets that second wind at 10 p.m., add some heavier movement into your movement time and a longer dimming session. So you've got more and heavier movement and a longer time of calm before you focus on connection. So and then also reduce the stimulating play after dinner. Once dinner is over, just work on calming activities. If they're on the screens, that's a good time to be on the screen. If you can reduce the blue light, so put it in night mode, but do things that are calming. If there's a protest over separation, extend your connection time by about 5 minutes. Record a 45-second voice note that they can play when you're gone. Give them some other kind of tangible way to have you there. There's stuffed animals that you can push their hand and it's your recorded voice. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's a book that they love that they can just listen to on autopilot in the background. If they can't stop talking and they keep wanting to tell you all of the things that are coming to their mind, Offer a Park It for Morning notebook. Put it on the nightstand, put a pencil there, put a little book light, and let them know you'll read that first thing in the morning. While they're getting their outside time, you'll read their Park It notebook, and you'll comment on anything or have a conversation with them over breakfast on anything that was in that Park It notebook. But we have to stop talking now because our bodies need to know and our brains need to be triggered that it's wind down time. So if there's something that you just can't get out of your brain and you need to tell somebody, write it down or draw a picture of it in the Park It notebook, depending on their age, and you promise that you'll look at it first thing in the morning. I've done this with kids at various times throughout their lives, and it works really well because it gives them a place, an outlet to put their whatever's in their brain. Oftentimes they don't even want to talk about it the next day, but you're at least offering. I actually used to do this when I was a classroom teacher as well, especially when I worked with the gifted clusters or when I transitioned to be a gifted intervention specialist and I was working with neurodivergent kids, pulling them from their classroom all day. There were kids that did not want to leave my resource room because they just needed to tell me something. Another thing, I would give them a sticky notepad and tell them that they could write anything down as long as it wasn't disrupting whatever their classroom teacher was doing when I was an intervention specialist, or as long as it wasn't disrupting what I was doing with the whole group or other kids when we were in the regular classroom, and they could put it on their desk. And I would go and read it while they were at lunch or recess or after they left me for the day. And I would get back to them the next day about whatever it was. That worked wonderfully because, again, they were being heard. Kiddos who can't stop talking and have all sorts of thoughts really just want to be heard. Before we go, okay, this is a lot. This is a big episode. I really want to encourage you to go over to the show notes for this episode, raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast, because you'll have notes about all of this and a written version of this. It's not the straight transcript. It's a written version of this episode that gives you point by point what I talked about. So you could just print that out if you want, or you can take further notes from it. It will also include links to resources that I talked about on this page. So I encourage you to do that. But I also really want to encourage you to celebrate small wins throughout this process. Resetting a messed up sleep cycle is not easy. So if you had been doing the dimmer time for 20, 25 minutes, and you hit only needing 15 one day, celebrate. Oh my gosh, you guys, do you realize we only needed our dimmer time for 15 minutes last night? That's amazing. Your brains are really kicking it into the circadian time, the circadian cycle, so much more quickly. That means your body is getting ready for sleep easier. Therefore, it's getting ready for the time that is going to heal it and regenerate itself and get you rested and ready for a great next day that much more quickly, that much sooner. That's amazing. Celebrate those wins. Oh my gosh, you use some of your deep breathing to help you reset and fall asleep. So cool. I can't believe you remembered to do that. That's amazing. Do you know you only called me back in twice last night? You're so brave. I'm so proud of the bravery you showed in staying in your room and only needing to call me twice. Fantastic. I can't believe you were such a brave warrior last night. Whatever it is, celebrate your wins, celebrate their wins, and let them know how proud you are of them. This is hard for you. It's hard for them. They don't want to be needy. They want to feel safe. They want to feel heard. They want to feel seen. You've got this. You can totally do it. If you want more support and maybe even a little bit of hand-holding throughout this process or cheering on, I would encourage you to join us in the Learners Lab. There are going to be several different discussion threads throughout this week and next week based off of this episode after I've shared it. And we will be talking about what's working and what's not working for parents in the lab if they've listened to the episode and want to chime in. So if you want real-time support as you're going through it, it's a great resource. Not only is it a support system for you with the discussion threads and the group coaching calls, but there's so much for your kids. It's truly a family community. and your kids have the opportunity to join in clubs, join in meetups virtually, and classes that I'm teaching. So I would encourage you, it's one low price for all of the inclusions, and nobody needs all of it. It's a smorgasbord for you to pick and choose from. So if your kiddos aren't ready or don't need those online classes and clubs yet, just jump in. It's totally worth it for that price to jump into the parent coaching and the discussion threads, because one-on-one coaching is a lot more time consuming and expensive. But not only will you get input from me in there, but you'll get input from other parents who are going through it too. So I would highly encourage you to join the Learners Lab if you haven't already. We'd love to have you in there. You can join month to month, cancel anytime, or once you've discovered that it is the place that you are surrounded by people and families just like you and you want to join for longer terms, you can join annually and save a couple months in your membership price. So I'd encourage you to join us. You can check it out over on the website, raisinglifelonglearners.com. You can check out Curiosity Post, our brand new snail mail club for kids, where they get encouragement, social emotional learning, journal prompts, a mini journal, stickers, and other fun stuff delivered to their mailbox every single month. Curiosity Post is based on the same creative thinking, social and emotional learning, critical thinking, and executive function themes that we're doing in the Learners Lab each month. So if you are a member of the lab, Curiosity Post is a great complement for it. And they do work together, and both include their own individual content. You won't be like double dipping if you are a member of both. And we do have members who are members of both. But if you can only do one or the other, Learners Lab stands on its own, Curiosity Post stands on its own, and you'll get support either way. So I encourage you to join one or both. We'd love to have you. And if you're looking for a fabulous math program, check out CTC Math at ctcmath.com or through the link over on the show notes for this episode, because that link takes you straight to a great deal for homeschoolers. You'll love it. No questions asked, money back guarantee with CTC Math, so you really can't lose if you're looking for a great math program. All right, we'll be back same time, same place next week with a brand new series started. Also, for you longtime listeners, I am getting ready to pull back in some interview episodes. I have a bunch of people who have reached out to me in my inbox asking if I would be interested in either interviewing them, talking to them about a book that they've written or a specialty that they have related to neurodivergence or homeschooling. And I've had publishers and other people reach out on behalf of their authors and their clients. But I'd love to hear from you as well. If there is a guest you would love to hear talk on the podcast, please reach out to me at support@raisinglifelonglearners.com or go to the contact tab on the website and click there. There's an email form that goes straight to my inbox, and let me know who you'd like me to reach out to. Better yet, if you have their contact information, include that there to make it really easy for me to send an email inviting them to be on the podcast for an interview. I'd love to have some really great conversations about what is good for kiddos like ours, and I'd love your input as well. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Have a great week. Love on those kids. Bye for now.